I would now like to introduce the Honourable Tim Mander, the Minister for Housing and Public Works and the State Member for Everton, who will be opening the conference. Mr Mander was elected to State Parliament in March 2012 and was fast-tracked into the ministry as the Assistant Minister for Sport and Racing before being promoted to the front bench as the Minister for Housing and Public Works in November last year. Previously, Mr Mander had a successful career as a leading NRL referee, and I think he actually refereed 2 state finals in 2004 and 2005, if my research was correct, and spent 6 years as the CEO of the Scripture Union of Queensland. Would you please give a warm welcome to Minister Tim Mander?
Thank you very much, Wyn, and it's great to be here today, and I'd like to thank Shannon for that welcome, and I also acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we're now standing upon. Folks, it is great to be here today. I have now been in my position for as the Housing and Public Works Minister for the last 6 months, and in that time I've learning more and more about the sectors and the industry, if you like. And what is very apparent is that in this area, we deal with people who are very, very passionate about what they do. And I love working with passionate people. And in fact, if there was an adjective that I hope that people would describe me as, that they'd also say that I'm passionate. And the things that I've been involved with over the 20 years, I've always been driven by passion. I do very much agree with that old saying, which says that if you follow your passion, you'll never work a day in your life. And over the last 20 years, I can say that I've tried to live to that motto. I've been involved in a number of ventures, and just very briefly, Wyn mentioned some of those things. One of the things was that I was a NRL rugby league professional referee for 10 years. You might say, well, what the heck has that got to do with the housing sector? I tell you what it has helped me to do. That's build resilience. And when Wyn said earlier, would you take questions afterwards, you might get some tricky ones. I said, look, I've been a rugby league referee for 30 years. You cannot offend me. I know what it's like to be criticised. And so I'm being very well prepared in the life of politics through my career as a rugby league referee. What was more relevant, though, to my position now is that I was also the CEO of an organisation called Scripture Union Queensland, which is the youth and children's organisation, which is best known for the school chaplaincy program in the state school system. Now, the school chaplaincy program in the state school system is not a religious education program, it's a pastoral care program. And it's one that's been incredibly successful in this state, with over 600 chaplains in schools right across the state and in over 800 schools. And what that exposed me to was those children and those families that live on the edge, that need a helping hand, who are exposed to the pressures of everyday living on a daily basis. And I am very, very passionate about that work, and at the core of that is helping those that are in need. And I'm delighted to be in this space now as a government minister, where I'm trying to continue to do that through the housing and the homelessness space. And I want to talk a little bit more about that in my address. We do have a challenge in this state in a whole range of different ways. As the population increases, of course, the demand for housing increases as well. And the current climate, where there are falling construction levels and increasing property prices, that means that a gap is really building between affordable housing demand and supply. And the shortage of affordable private property options means that puts more pressure on the social housing system. Now, you've all heard the statistics before, but I'll remind you again that we have a great challenge. We have 23,000 households on the public housing waiting list. People who, for some, have been waiting for some time to be put into affordable housing. We currently have 54,000 government-owned managed public housing dwellings and over 17,000 dwellings that are managed by the community housing sector. Now, over 1/3 of that stock is over 25 years of age. And in 2012, it cost us more than $197 million to maintain those properties. There's also an issue with regards to supply and demand. So our supply is mainly 3 and 4 bedroom homes, a supply that was very relevant to the social housing demand 30 years ago. But as most of you would be aware, 47% of people on the public housing waiting list are single people. And so we have a chronic shortage of 1 and 2 bedroom dwellings. And so our challenge is to be able to meet that supply with the demand that we actually have. So we've been putting a few thoughts together, a couple of strategies, which I would have loved to have said and announced all the minute details of that today. It's actually going to Cabinet on Monday. But I'm going to give you a very good glimpse and being a little bit presumptuous of the things that we're hoping that we can achieve in this space over the next few years. But before I sort of talk about that, I do want to talk about some philosophical things and about some of the ways that this government sees things, how we see things, the way that things should be done. We really do believe that the government should be an enabler and not a doer. We should facilitate those in the private sector and the non-government sector in a whole range of different ways, but particularly in this space, those like yourselves that are formed to actually meet this need. And so our policies will be very much about facilitating and being the enabler rather than the doer ourselves. We also believe in building resilience and not reliance. And we want to be able to move people through the system. And but of course we realise that won't happen automatically unless we can provide the appropriate wraparound services and the education to ensure that people can move through the system. We believe in contestability, and we believe that as we go into this realm of making sure that our services are transferred more to the non-government sector, that is contestable. And that's very, very important to make sure that the best services are offered, that the services are cost effective, and that they lead to real results and real outcomes. And so some of these philosophies are the things that are driving our strategies. Now, I know it's sort of dangerous to categorise people, and I do say that in my next comments that I'm generalising greatly. But the way I see it is that we are dealing with 3 categories of people in the social housing space. And it helps me to think that way because that helps me develop strategy. As far as I can see, we have 3 categories of people. Let me just sort of briefly mention those. The first category of people are those that can't. Those people that through life circumstances will always find themselves in the social housing space. Those that have mental health issues, those that have physical health issues, those that are so broken for whatever reason there may be, we appreciate that they're going to be in the social housing system for some time, and I recognise that. There's another category of people which I would call those that can't yet. Those that, with assistance, with the appropriate support, with appropriate education, with the appropriate wraparound services, will be able to be in a position at some stage, hopefully, to be able to move through the system. And the third category of people are those that I would call those that should. Those that are actually capable at the moment, who are in the social housing system, are capable of moving on, but just haven't been given the right prompts, haven't been given the right incentives, haven't been given the right guidance to actually do that. And some of the policy settings that we haven't helped that as well. So, as I said, it's dangerous to categorise people. I'm talking in broad generalisations, but it helps me when I sort of see people in those sort of 3 categories as we work out the strategy to make sure that we have a housing sector that meets the demand that we have. The strategy that we've put together, which we're calling Housing 2020, is guided by 4 principles. Those principles are that we're looking at renewing and reconfiguring social housing for some of those reasons that I mentioned earlier. We're looking at growing and innovating through partnerships. We cannot do this by ourselves. The government cannot do this on its own. It must partner with the non-government sector. We're looking at facilitating housing pathways to the private market, again building on some of those principles that I mentioned. And we're also looking at a better use of social housing and support services. So the goals that we will have in this Housing 2020, some of these things you've heard already, and some of these things are yet to be confirmed, but they generally speak around the following goals. We are looking to, by 2020, to have 90%, at least 90% of the social housing portfolio management transferred to the non-government sector. Now, at the moment, that sits at about 25%. I think the COAG goal at the end of 2014 was 34%. But we're very serious about that. This goal, we believe it is the way to go. We believe that people such as yourselves are better positioned to manage the social housing portfolio. We recognise that many are not yet in the position of being able to do that, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. But our goal is to get to that 90% mark by 2020, and I believe that we can do that. We are looking at building new dwellings. Now, I want to build at least 12,000 new dwellings over the next 6 or 7 years to make sure that we can continue to keep up with this demand that we have. We are looking at diverting 250,000 people to the private market. Now, some of those people, of course, are in the social housing market at the moment, if you like, but there are many more coming towards that. We want to move them away from that to put them into the private rental market. And we'll have a number of policies that relate to doing that, things like increasing Rent Connect, our bond loans, fixed-term contracts, terms, those type of things, and we'll elaborate more on that when the policy comes out. We want to continue to monitor under-occupancy. It currently stands at 12%. We want to move that down. We want to do that sensitively. One of the things that really has encouraged me when I go around and see some of the housing solutions is that, and I'll use an example, and of course it's been a good example in Churches of Christ Care, where they have a holistic sort of view with regards to care, and with aged care in particular. You go to one of their sites and there's aged care, there's supported living, there's independent living, and now they've moved into the social housing space as well. And one of the great things is talking to residents who were in homes in the suburbs by themselves with 2 or 3 or 4 spare bedrooms, of course the building being under-occupied, and encouraging them to move to these brand new apartments that are 1 bedroom or 2 bedrooms, which they love that. They love that it's easy to manage, that they're in a great, bright new apartment. But the great intangible that is very, very hard to sell is the fact that they're now part of a community, where they are isolated out in the suburbs by themselves with very, very little interaction with others, but now they're part of a community, and their lives have been enriched through that, and I'm very encouraged by that, those type of proposals. And the other major goal that we have is that we need, if we're going to transfer 90% of the stock, we need to have probably 8 to 10 community providers that can look at having 6,000 to 10,000 homes under their control. Now that's a real challenge, because at the moment our largest provider has only about 2,000 homes, and so we need to have policies that will help build the capability of non-government community housing organisations so that this goal can be reached. Now, of course, you'd all be aware of the Logan Renewal Initiative, which is one of the prototypes that we're using, I suppose. It's a very bold project where there's 4,800 social housing tenancies or dwellings in the Logan area. And as you know, we've gone to the market about that, and we're hoping at the end of July to be able to announce a successful proponent. And we will be looking to transfer the management of all those tenancies, looking for the proponent to be able to revitalise that social housing portfolio, build new homes, redevelop properties, and of course doing all this by engaging with local business. We're hoping that will be a prototype for what we can do across the state. Now, nothing will be at that scale, but if we can get that right, we know that we'll be able to get it right in regional centres right across the state. NRAS, which was mentioned on the video, is still a very, very important part of the strategy, and so we have signed up for round 5 of NRAS, where there will be 2,000 incentives to be delivered in 2015 and 16. There are 200 shovel-ready incentives available right at the moment, which need to be delivered by June 2014. So this is still a very, very important part of the strategy. NRAS has already delivered nearly 5,000 affordable homes, and I think there's still 4,000 under construction at the moment. Indigenous housing is still a major priority for us under the national partnership with the federal government. Our goal is to deliver 1,141 homes in Indigenous communities by 2018. We have to deliver 150 of those by June this year, and that's proving a challenge with a late start. But again, it's been a very, very important part of the strategy is to make sure that we can get homes into these communities and that we also can have provide home ownership opportunities as well, which we're excited about. So that's some of the big picture goals for the housing strategy that we have. One of the other things that I've inherited, and I've inherited quite joyfully, is the homelessness space. So previously, that is really, in this current government, that's fallen over two portfolios. My department has provided the bricks and mortar, where the community services have provided the wraparound services. The whole portfolio, if you like, is now coming under my responsibility from the 1st of July, and that means that we'll have one department with the strategic oversight of this. And as I said, I'm excited about that because it's an area which I'm passionate about, and hopefully we can make some real changes there as well. Again, the principles that undermine the policy that we're putting together for homelessness revolve around the fact that we see homelessness support as being transitional. We really do want to promote and build this resilience and not this reliance sort of mentality. Again, recognising that those that can't need that extra help. We're looking for genuine engagement with the community with this, and also we're looking again for real outcomes. When we're process driven, we want to be outcome driven to make sure that we can provide the accommodation and support services that homeless people deserve. Our strategy will have two goals, and again, there's nothing new under the sun. We want to halve the rate of homelessness in Queensland, similar to the federal goal, and we want to provide real pathways for people on long-term homelessness or at the risk of homelessness to become independent, not reliant on government-funded crisis accommodation services. And so we'll have a three-pronged approach to this strategy. We will be investing in additional bricks and mortar. We will provide more assisted and supported accommodation options, and I'm looking forward to giving those details very, very shortly. We also want to look at restructuring and simplifying service models and enabling local decision making. And we want to better utilise the existing resources that we have, and again get better value for money from our investment, and to be outcome driven. We'll be providing particular focus on regional and rural areas, specifically addressing the needs of young people, rough sleepers and families, and some of the challenge that we have in the rural areas with the Indigenous communities who are often moving to the towns and to the cities and finding that transition quite difficult. We also want to have a better tracking system of our clients to make sure that our services are better coordinated, and ensuring that we know where people are in the system, and which helps us again in evaluating the services that we have as well. So those strategies for housing and for homelessness will be announced in the next couple of weeks, but I've given you a skeleton framework, if you like, of what they will look like, and I'm really looking forward to being able to provide more detail for that as well. I'm really looking forward to getting to know you better and to partnering with you closer in the future. I have met many of you already, and I'll be continuing to meet you over the next short period of time. I hope that this next couple of days for you was very worthwhile. I've seen the program and it seems to be very exciting actually, and some great speakers and some great subjects. So I hope that your investment in time has been, that you feel at the end of it, has been worthwhile. And as I said, I'm looking forward on behalf of the government to partnering with you in the future as well. Thank you very much for your time.